like mind boggled by the number of things. One of the things that we do whenever anybody requests the public APIs, be like, hey, can you give us some brief insight on what you'd be using it for? And it's always so diverse, always so different, mind blowing, like, oh yeah, that would be handy. For me, I think I'm really excited about being able to publish directly to the web by using Notion as a CMS. Yes. And that's something that a couple of our customers already do because they were able to sort of reverse engineer the mechanism. And it seems so awesome to be able to write something in Notion and then press a button and have it be live on a blog inside the format of your blog. So that's something I'm looking forward to in particular.
Love that. One thing I'm curious about too, because some of the other folks that I've connected with are also looking at creating
search. We're really excited to be launching it.
Hello, hello. Welcome to Notion's office hours. I'm your, oh, is there a bit of an echo for you? If you have multiple windows open, it might be echoing.
Is that better?
It is. It's good. We're good.
Okay.
Can you guys hear us okay? Just give us a hello in the sidebar there. Let us know if you can hear us and there's no strange echoing going on. Perfect.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you, everybody.
So welcome. This is sort of our first office hours, really. And I'm joined here by Camille Ricketts, who is the head of marketing at Notion. I'm Marie Poulin. I am Notion's #1 super fan. I love the product so much. I'm just an enormous fan of what it's been able to do for my own productivity. So just a little bit of housekeeping. If you have any burning questions about Notion, make sure to add them to the Ask a Question area below so they don't get lost in the chat. I encourage you put any questions in there and we'll do our best to answer them in this session. If you're open to sharing your space with us, we would love to bring you up on screen. I think it's so easy to get inspired once you see other ways that people are using the product. You will definitely want to take that into your own space. Notion has put together some amazing templates for students and teachers, and maybe we should go into kind of what's happening. There's a big announcement. If you haven't heard, that Notion has made the product free for students and teachers. So Camille, I'd love to hear from you. Why this decision and sort of what was the impetus for making this move?
Yeah, super exciting. As of Tuesday, now you can get unlimited storage, unlimited uploads, the version history, a lot of other advanced features for free if you use your school email address with Notion. So either if you sign up with your school address or if you change the address you have associated with your account to your school address, you should see the upgrade happen right away. We were just so floored by all of the use cases that we saw among students and teachers. It just seems like, for whatever reason, Notion is the perfect tool to use for taking notes, for your classes, for research, for keeping things organized. We launched a video that I encourage you all to watch at our YouTube channel with 2 students at Berkeley who really crystallized it so well when they said, you know, I'm running 2 student organizations, I'm doing all these extracurriculars, I'm trying to excel at school, and I feel like my brain is just scattered, and Notion's the one tool that's helped me put it all together. And we wanted to just make that possible for far more people. And we were also fascinated by students who said that they then brought Notion into the workplace with them once they graduated. And that's a pattern that, of course, we'd love to see more of. So we're thrilled to have that announcement be live this week. And I hope that all of you who are students and teachers have been enjoying the new features so far.
Amazing. I'm curious if anybody here has had a chance to dive into some of those new templates for students and teachers, if you've had a chance. I just put up a quick poll to say, are you a student or teacher? And it looks like we have a lot of students here and a lot of not a lot of teachers that have surfaced yet. But I know a friend of mine, Scott, who came on the last office hours and just showed some of the ways that he's been using it to track his own courses, how many students he's got in there, you know, all the different initiatives and things that he has to keep track of. He's been using Notion for that. So it's been pretty cool to see that you guys have these sort of pre-made templates for that. Kyle says, same thing happened for me. Used it to manage it for job search and assignments. Now use it for my task tracking at work. Haven't looked into the new templates yet. Very cool. Awesome. Yeah, it's really inspiring. Have you personally been using it for your own? I mean, obviously, use it for your own stuff. But do you have any courses that you're studying or taking? You know, do you ever take online courses and use it for your own tracking and studies?
Me?
Yeah.
I do use it for continual learning. I have my personal workspace, and I have one of my top level pages is called Wisdom, and literally
all over the place. So that's
yeah.
awesome. There's a couple questions that have come in that I think you are probably better suited to answer than me. So if you're cool with that, I'm going to open up some of those questions and maybe we can dig into some of those before doing a little bit of a tour of the templates.
That sounds great.
Okay, so somebody asked, Michael asks, are there any plans to add support for viewing multiple pages at once? A lot of the time it's useful to do this, and the only way of doing that, as far as I know, is to have multiple instances of Notion opening.
Interesting. Well, I want to make sure that I understand exactly what it is you want to do, and see if this answers your question. If not, we can dig deeper. But if you're using Notion on browser, you should be able to hold, and on Mac, I think it's probably Control instead of Command on PC, but you should be able to open new tabs by holding down Command and then clicking on whatever pages you want to open, and you'll see multiple Notion pages open in new tabs on your browser. If you're using the desktop app, you can do the same thing, and you should see new windows actually open. And one quick thing that a lot of people don't know about, but you can open a new window of Notion of the same instance by doing Command or Control Shift N. So I know that just Command Control N opens up a new page within your existing Notion window. But you can also open a whole other Notion window using Command Shift N. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's exactly how I've been using it too. Sometimes just having either two browser windows open and just kind of resizing them accordingly, new tabs, or using two Notion windows. So that's great to know that we can already do that.
Yeah.
So that's someone said, I'd love to see some cool examples of using templates for assignment, project, exam tracking. And so it sounds like we have some of that already in the existing templates.
Yeah, the two that I might highlight there for projects, we actually called it thesis planning here because we heard from so many people that Notion was instrumental in them writing their dissertation or thesis or something along those lines. But I think it could be useful for any project planning where we have, as part of the template, a place where you can brainstorm topics, kind of weigh the pluses and minuses of different topics that you might pursue. There's a page also nested in here for your sources and notes so that you can just keep a track of all of the different books and everything that you've been reading or articles that you've been pulling information out of. And then there's this timeline where you can really clearly visualize the different pieces of the project. So in this case, it's chapters of your thesis, your proposal, your intro, when things are due. And then you can use the calendar view to see, oh, am I still working on the thing I said I'd be working on during that span of time? And you can keep all of your deadlines right there and also the status so that it's kind of right there in your face and you understand that you're on track for everything. So that's for larger, I think, writing projects or projects with multiple moving pieces. But then there's also the class schedule, and I think that's actually under educators, where you can keep track of the different assignments and exams that are coming up. And you can take notes that you think are relevant to each of those upcoming assignments or essays or midterms or what have you right there. And you could even, let's say you took class notes elsewhere, you could link to those pages inside of your preparation for these exams or these assignments.
Right. We could add, relational databases in here, right? That could kind of pull from other databases and connect that information. So that's really cool. I'm definitely going to be using, I'm doing my permaculture diploma right now. So I think the thesis planning would be perfect for that. So that's really great. Thanks for answering that.
Of course.
There was a question that's about, will mobile loading be sped up? My workplace is over 1,000 blocks after using lots of templates, loading over 3 seconds on my mobile phone.
Yes, we are. I am, and we are apologetic about that. We completely understand it. It's a pain point we feel very deeply. Actually, to this point, there was a tweet that went out a week ago saying, I would forego or sacrifice any shiny new features from Notion if I just knew that they were going to improve performance. And we replied and said, truly right now, for the last week and probably for this week and next week, our engineering team's full focus are going to be on improving 3 things. Performance, which includes mobile loading times, but also for the desktop app, and also for large databases that might be in any of your versions of Notion. Improving offline. We really hear a lot of you who are struggling with either losing data or not having reliable offline access, so that should be getting much better. And then last one is search. We're really excited to be launching a new search experience soon that will not only give you more relevant results to your searches, but also let you filter them so that you can search within different sections of your workspace instead of the entire thing.
That's amazing. Thanks so much for clarifying that. Does anyone have any other specific questions that we could dive in? Obviously, Camille working at Notion gives us a lot of insight into kind of what's happening behind the scenes. So if you guys want to ask any questions, now would be the time. Otherwise, we could also dive into some of these specifics of the templates. Michael asked, this might be an overly technical question, but does that optimization include plans to write native apps not based on Electron?
Currently not. We're sticking with that. We will keep you posted if we ever make a different choice, but for now, we're staying the course.
Cool. Oh, great question came in about any support coming in for inline LaTeX support. I've been taking notes for math, computer science classes at school, but having to declare a new math block gets a bit unwieldy.
Yes, this is something that we've added a ton of votes for on our roadmap to give you some insight into how we take feedback from our users exceptionally seriously. Whenever we get requests or questions or people are struggling with different parts of the app through our customer support channel or on Twitter or really through any of the channels where our users communicate with us, we're able to tag those within our system, and that lends quantitative intuition to how we make product decisions so that we understand and make sure that whatever we decide about the product is really being driven by our users. And inline math is an incredibly popular request. There are many votes for it at this point. I would not be surprised if that is something we work on soon.
Very cool. Great. Will Notion allow for in-app picture cropping?
Wow, this is something that I wish we had. As a marketer, I'm constantly needing to manipulate images more easily. I do not know of any plans for that right now, but certainly that's something that we would love to explore in the future. In particular, the one that I'm keen on is adding borders to pictures. So know that you have an internal advocate
Yeah.
Yes, in Notion image editing.
And that's what's probably great about these office hours too, is that you're getting a chance too to hear what some of that feedback and what some of those requests are.
Oh, yes. And all of this will be piped directly back to the engineers who I sit next to on a daily basis.
Awesome. Another question came in my country, the weeks start from Saturday. So I want to make the calendar start from Saturday, not Sunday or Monday.
Oh, wow. I'd be so curious about where you live. We don't have that plan going right now, but that's the first time I've actually heard that piece of feedback.
Yeah.
And given that we already have the mechanism for how to do that inside settings and members, I will check on that for you.
Very interesting. So another question came in. Someone said, curious, can I link to Scrivener for book?
Like, is that an integration, I wonder, that you're inquiring about? Or Kimberly, I see your question here in the sidebar.
Yeah, I'm curious if she's wondering if she could could she make a link and it would open up in Scrivener?
Not as far as I know. I do wonder if there's any sort of embeds available for Scrivener that will allow you to embed inside Notion. I'm not sure of that myself right now, but I don't think we have any official integrations there to take advantage of.
Deb asked, are you going to develop templates for genealogy? I'm curious if you have anything specific in mind with that, Deb. It's very specific.
Yeah, I would love to know as well what you would be interested in.
Oh, okay. Someone asked, Andrew, thank you for asking this. How's the schedule for embedding Google Calendar? You must get this all the time.
I do. Similar to the inline math, extremely popular. I feel like we should almost have like our rock star feature requests because they get so much attention, and it's absolutely one of them. It's something that is probably going to be bundled with us exploring a lot more integrations so that we can do minimal engineering work and enable a bunch of different type of exciting integrations our users have been requesting. We have an engineer who's extremely talented, one of the first engineers even to join the Notion team that's working on this right now. So I think that it is forthcoming. Please do hang in there with us. We know that it's going to be important and we will work on it.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's definitely something I can relate to. It feels like one of those like just missing pieces. Like it could do so much. I just wanted to do that one piece.
Exactly.
Okay, so what's the ETA for the timeline feature? That's another one that when I saw that screen cap, I was like, when is this coming?
Yes, we previewed it. It is coming. We're just tweaking the last few little things. I promise you, I've seen it. I've used it on our internal Notion. There are just a few things that we want to make sure are perfect for you because we don't want to ship anything that is substandard in this. We know it's going to be a really important and useful tool. The one quick teaser I will give you is that it's going to be integrated with the way the databases currently operate. So please stay tuned. Again, hang in there with us. It is forthcoming.
Very cool. I'm so excited about that feature. Michael asked, looking at the new templates from a top-down perspective, do you view any of these templates as being ideal for or aimed at administrative staff in education?
Oh, really great question. I do think that directories, like this class directory that you have here under educators, could be very interesting, particularly for faculty or any other people who work at the school. A good way to make all of those folks accessible with their contact information, maybe even some biographical information. And then it would be easy to use public access to just publish that to all the parents and students. So that could be an interesting way to showcase everybody who's in the school really easily. I also think that it'd be an interesting way to communicate with all of the various teachers who work at your school and allow them to sort of organize their work in a more transparent way so that you could have people sort of reporting in on what they're working on or what their lesson plans are or questions or concerns. And then also I think that our general wiki sort of knowledge-based templates that are not necessarily here, but if you look inside our template picker, which is accessible in the sidebar under templates. I know under human resources, there's something called company home. And this could be helpful for just organizing all of the different human resources related information that could go into running your school. If there are policies that people need to be briefed on, if there's any sort of announcements that need to be made and circulated very easily, I think that that could potentially be a good resource for you. However, if there are things that are specific to administrators that you'd like to see built, really encourage you to request them here in the sidebar. And my community manager and I can work diligently on seeing if we can get something built for you.
Love that. Yeah, there's some really great starting point templates to work from. So they're inspiring for sure.
Yeah, and if anybody does have, if you do take a template and then you decide to turn it into something else for a different use case, we always love seeing that stuff shared on Twitter and our subreddit, and we often do showcase a lot of that stuff back to our audience, just because it's so helpful for us to learn how others are using it too.
Yeah, awesome. Michael asked, looking at the new templates from a top-down, oh, that was the administrative one. We already answered that one. Awesome. Can uploaded file be linked to a file in the folder of the local computer so it will be updated after editing? Oh, that's interesting.
That is super interesting. That would be very handy. I can see that. Right now, there's no plans for that. But that is another thing that we're going to flag from this session and just introduce as a concept, because I can see how that would be handy.
Yeah, I wonder if that could work with Dropbox documents. Like when you save a Dropbox file over an existing Dropbox file, like if that Dropbox URL stays the same, maybe that's one way of kind of getting around that.
That could be.
I'll have to look into that. That's interesting. Someone says the title bar / menu in the Windows app is very distracting, and it would be pretty straightforward to remove it in an Electron app. So are there plans to do that?
Not as far as I know. That is an issue that I have yet seen be raised. But like I said, we're going to go through all the questions from this session with a fine-tooth comb so we can pass that information back to the team.
Cool. Any tips on using Notion as a text editor? Haven't been able to paste in text and keep the formatting in a convenient way.
Yeah, this is something that I really struggle with as a writer too. Like so much of my job here is writing, and the text editor can be different to use, mostly because it's block-based rather than how people assume it will be used based on their experience with sort of Microsoft Word. However, we do have an initiative on the engineering team that we are dubbing sort of natural feeling editing, and we're hoping to make big strides in the near future on just how natural and intuitive the editor itself feels while still maintaining the ability to drag and drop blocks. So there should be improvements to the text editor soon. Yeah, otherwise I don't have a quick hack for you necessarily to make pasting easier, but I hope that you'll still hang in there with us while we explore ways to make it better.
Yeah, I'd be curious, Oscar, what are you using currently as a text editor? If you're able to share, there might be a better way, whether it's through importing or I know a friend of mine does his in Ulysses and then he exports as Markdown. You could import Markdown. Like it's a little bit of workarounds, but yeah.
Yeah, it's something I'm really looking forward to because I'd love to be able to do all of my writing inside of Notion. Yeah.
Sicktastic asks, is there a way to insert emojis with a shortcut, for example, doing something like smile, colon, smile, colon? This is a good question. One thing that I do as a sort of nerdy workaround is I use Alfred, and I have pre-programmed certain icons that I use all the time. And so I go to image and I use my Alfred shortcuts to kind of spit out a URL because I'm in Notion a lot. And so whatever I can do to save time on that. But I don't know if there are plans to, I don't know, make the shortcut emoji insertion easier or...
We don't have any official plans internally. I use the shortcut Command Control Space all the time that brings up the emoji picker. There are a couple, I think, Chrome extensions that are all about this that allow you in no matter what program or window you're using in Chrome to type colon and then very quickly search. I know that I love that feature when I use Superhuman, the email app. We don't have plans necessarily right now, but it's really good for us to know, and I'll add your vote for that particular feature.
Very cool. Emojis make all the difference in Notion.
Oh, that's good to know.
It's cool. It looks clean. It looks nicely designed. I just think it's, as a designer, the visuals do matter to me, that it feels like the space is attractive. I'm sure a lot of other people can relate to that. Yeah,
we've heard that it helps pages be memorable, or just like people have fun adding their little bit of personality to pages. So
absolutely. Yeah. A couple friends of mine that kind of they've sort of branded their own with their own colors, right? So like the icons have a little bit of a gradient and they're all in the same icon family. So some people go a little deeper on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Oscar just said he's mostly using Word, Google Docs, etc. Would love to do writing inside of Notion and be able to efficiently manage and edit text both inside and so transport to and from different text editors.
Yeah, that's really good insight to have, and I'll definitely bring that feedback back to the team. But it certainly is an ongoing and existing project that we're working on.
That's cool. I know that. I've been writing my blog posts inside of Notion, and then I'm able to export as Markdown, and then my husband is able to very quickly take it from Markdown to Middleman, whatever editor he's using. So that process has actually become easier by writing my blogs in Notion, but I can totally understand that if you're using Google Docs and try to move stuff over, it can be, you kind of have to redesign your workflow a little bit, which can be tricky.
Yeah, that point is well taken.
So Michael asked another question, and this may already exist in some form. I'm a new user. Welcome, Michael. I'd like to be able to reference people in a table or block without those individuals being previously created users in my workspace. In
I
other
see.
words, reference individuals in a personal meeting in notes, but not with the goal to notify them. That's a
I
great
see.
question.
So that's almost like tagging, like it would be like hashtag person.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Another thing that I'll be sure to take back from this session. We've talked a lot about tagging, and obviously, like a lot of other notes apps have been really have placed a lot of emphasis on tagging. So it's something that is forefront for us in determining whether or not that's something we want to bake in.
Yeah, that's a really great question, because I have had that before where I wanted to, in a to-do list, kind of assign it to someone, but they're not in my workspace yet. I
Right.
just kind of wanted to know that it's assigned to them without, without having to create or add a person into my workspace.
Totally. That makes sense to me as functionality for sure.
Kyle says, I love Notion. You guys amaze me so much. I know, right? I know that you guys mentioned adding Gantt charts at some point as a view for data. Is it still on a table for release? I'm assuming that is the timeline feature that we talked
It
about, right?
is. Yeah, those are synonymous with each other. So there's going to be no feature left behind there. We're trying to be as thorough as humanly possible and also make it really easy for you to visualize data using a timeline without having to recreate it anywhere, so that you can essentially create another view if you have something in like a calendar or a table, etc. Really seamlessly with a couple clicks to get that Gantt chart view.
Very cool. I'm so excited about that view.
Yeah, we're excited too.
One thing I'm curious about with the API, I'm assuming that Zapier is going to be one of those things that you guys are integrating with. And I'm curious if there's any specific use cases either that you or the team is really looking forward to being able to hook up together.
Gosh, that's a great question. There's so much that is going to be enabled by that project. We're like mind boggled by the number of things. One of the things that we do whenever anybody requests the public APIs, be like, hey, can you give us some brief insight on what you'd be using it for? And it's always so diverse, always so different, mind blowing, like, oh yeah, that would be handy. For me, I think I'm really excited about being able to publish directly to the web by using Notion as a CMS. And that's something that a couple of our customers already do because they were able to sort of reverse engineer the mechanism. And it seems so awesome to be able to write something and then press a button and have it be live on a blog inside the format of your blog. So that's something I'm looking forward to in particular.
Love that. One thing I'm curious about too, because some of the other folks that I've connected with are also looking at creating paid templates or a paid course, but delivering it on Notion. And so I was curious for a friend of mine who's releasing his course, what's going to be the process for adding new people to the workspace without an annual process? So someone pays you and then you're having to sort of manually add that person to get access to your database. Could that be something that could be zapped, where it's like add user
I think that's totally within reason to have somebody sign up on a registration form and have it be zapped to add maybe not a member to your workspace, but a guest to a particular page, for instance. But probably also members to your workspace. We want to make sure that everybody is clear on how pricing works with members. So guest is a little bit of a more a safer bet if you're just adding a whole horde of people
right.
to a workspace.
Yeah.
But yeah, that sounds to me like extremely realistic.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Oscar asked another question. Did you have something to add to that, or?
I just want to say that unfortunately I have to leave in 2 minutes because I am running to another meeting. So if anybody has any last questions for me, I'd love to be helpful. And then I'm just so thankful to have gotten to be here for a little bit of time. I'll turn it back over to you, Marie.
No, this is great. You've definitely got way more insight into some of the behind the scenes plans for Notion. So that's great. Oscar asked, any ideas to implement an easy way to utilize formulas in data handling? I've seen a few formulas floating around, but didn't find it too intuitive.
That's a great question. It is something that we've thought a lot about. Formulas can be so powerful. We'd like to make them more accessible to more people who are not familiar necessarily with formulas, or people who were not Excel masters before joining the Notion cohort. So I don't know exactly what plans we have for that, but I will definitely bring back that folks would like a little bit more of an entry point there.
And I feel like there are a few people who've created some really great resources too. I don't have the link offhand, but maybe we can find that and post it in our
Yeah,
follow-up, right?
it's a guy, the best one that I've seen was created by a guy who goes by Listek, Listek. So if you just Google Listek Notion, you should see his formulas guide. We also made a big effort to beef up our own formula guide in notion.so/help, our help center. So if you take a look at that, we have more examples than we've ever had. Plus, we're adding to it on a regular basis whenever we spy anything else particularly clever out there.
Awesome. Yeah, your guys' documentation is really, really great. Got a lot of resources there.
Awesome.
So Justin says, apologies if this was covered already. As a student, I spend a lot of time working with student organizations. So I was wondering if student organizations where all the users are also students can be under the free education plan.
So I just want to make sure that I'm understanding the question. Is it like you want to add a bunch of guests who are also students? Does that seem to be the question?
So wondering if student organizations, I mean, I imagine if everyone is
if everyone is a student, then they should be able to get the personal plan. Oh, I see what it is. Because the plan right now that we've made free for students is not the team plan, but is, optimized for personal use. You can still use it with a team. This is a workaround that I am publicly sharing because I want as many student organizations to use it as possible. Essentially, instead of inviting a bunch of members to your workspace, you would create one high-level page in your sidebar that would essentially serve as the homepage for your team. And then you would just add all of the pages that you want your other members to be able to access inside of that page. And then you would add all of your other members as guests, and they would have the same full permission access as you would to collaborate on all of those pages.
Awesome. Hopefully that answers your question, Justin. I think that's such a brilliant move.
I hope that helps. So I have to run, but I just want to thank everybody in the room right now for taking the time to spend this morning with us. And thank you so much, Marie, for being just an incredible pro and hosting our very first office hours. And I'm looking forward to being on your show later on down the road.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Camille.
Thank you. Have a good morning, everybody.
Cheers. I will do my best to answer any other questions that come in. Oscar asks, big ask, could you add a reference manager like EndNote, RefWorks, potentially referencing other pages as a 1 or 2, or whichever way you'd like to reference pages? So I may not be the best person to answer this, but is this like footnotes and that sort of thing, Oscar? Because I will often just reference other pages inside of my copy just by typing the @ button and mentioning the page. That may not be the most elegant way to do it. You might be looking for something a bit more almost like a footnote manager. Is that what you're thinking? Not sure if that answers your. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure what their plans are that way, but I frequently will mention other pages. Like if I'm in a journal and I'm saying, here's what I did today, I'll just hit @ and I'll mention other things that other pages, other database entries, just by hitting the @ symbol, you can mention all sorts of other stuff. Yeah, I don't know if it would make sense to create a references database table inside your thing. Yeah, something more elegant. That's a good question. Maybe as more students are using Notion, that might be a more frequently requested feature. So yeah, don't hesitate to mention that to the Notion team if that's something that you really want to see. Any other questions that are coming in, whether they're specific to the student teacher thing or not? There's lots of other templates and pages we could dive in and check out. I'm curious if you've had a chance, let me know in the sidebar if you have had a chance to check out some of these incredible templates. I'm pretty stoked about the Life Wiki personally. I think there's some really cool, I think just seeing some of these layouts gives you some ideas of what you might want to do with your own Life Wiki. And are there any and read access, which is great. So lots of options there. Awesome. I'm curious how long you have been using Notion. For those of you that are still here, is it, are you pretty new to Notion? Is it something you've been using for months? Did you just find out about it through knowing that the student teacher accounts are free, or have you already been using it? Publishing meeting notes for a committee is such a great use case for sure. Meeting notes, I use it for my Girl Guide notes, so that's been really helpful. And just having a central place where I can share that link with parents so they can see what we talked about during the meeting. It's really such a great use case. Often I will share the sometimes I won't even add them as a guest because I know sometimes people are like, oh, another account, another thing that I have to create. Sometimes I'll just make it public and share the link with them. Yeah, using it for more than a year and a half now, couldn't go without it. Man, I wish Notion was around when I was in university. I can't even imagine just how much easier things would have been to have a central place to store and keep all of this stuff. Oscar asked, do you know if it's possible to integrate, for example, Google Calendar inside of Notion? So I do believe you can actually embed your Google Calendar inside of Notion. I don't know if it allows you to actually add items to your calendar or if it's just kind of a read-only embed. I know their calendar integration is coming soon, so it is a little bit limited, but I do believe if you Google it, there is a tutorial of how to do this, but you basically have to make your calendar public for read access, and then you can get a little embed code and put that into your Notion account. So there are some workarounds for the lack of Google Calendar integration. So hopefully that helps. What I'll do is I'll round up some of the answers and references to some of the questions too, and we can do an email to go out after to everyone who showed up, and hopefully that will help answer some of those questions. I might not have time to find the specific link, but there's some documentation around how to do that. Awesome, 6 months to a year. Sounds like lots of people have been using it for a little while now and just kind of finding some ways to use it even more deeply. I can share with you some of my own kind of studies and how I've been using it. Again, I'm not in university, I'm not a student at the moment, but I am always studying and I'm always learning. So I have created this studies area for myself where I can see all of the courses that I'm taking. I can see completed courses, courses in progress, books to read, articles to do. Let's see here, active courses. And, I have notes in here, like building a second brain course here, and I can tag it. I can put the type. Maybe it's a masterclass, maybe it's an ebook or a program, the URL, so I can jump right in and start taking the course. I can give it a status, a price, the start date, and then I've got related notes here too. And then add images that relate to the course, and I've got all sorts of notes for different modules, or I can jump in and go deeper. Sometimes I use my Remarkable to take more sketchnote-y type notes, and I just export those into my space here. So lots of messy notes and things alongside more structured notes. So that's just one way that I've been using it. But now seeing some of these student templates, I'm pretty excited to especially check out that thesis template. Another question that popped in. I haven't been doing class notes in Notion yet. I'm super curious about how to go about it effectively. Do you have a workflow to show? Great question, Oscar. And I'm sure that workflow would be different if I were starting from scratch. But one thing I try to get into the habit of is when I am going through a course, as soon as I sign up for a course, I create a new study here, give it a icon, give it an image or whatever. And then I try to add the modules as I go. So let's say I'm in module 1, this is the first one, I might jump into here. And, you can see there's like some messy notes here. There's an Evernote note here. I don't really use Evernote since using Notion, but that's what was provided in the course. And I'll go through and I'll just kind of add notes as I go. I try to kind of keep them in a module by module basis. Maybe I can show you a couple other examples. I think it's a little bit of habit building. So for example, I'm in this accelerator program, and so there's multiple courses inside of this accelerator program. And if I click into each of these, here are the notes from that module. Here are the things that I need to do. And so they're all kind of tucked away inside of this master note. And then I can go deeper. I even have an inline table here that is insights. So these are just kind of random insights that will come up through the process of going through this course. This is just a really, really basic table. I could even add additional fields. For example, maybe I could add a relational database to notes. So I have a notes database that is basically my own notes that I create. And so I could very quickly relate that to a note here. So there's lots that you could do to customize for the way that you want to structure your space and that you want to think about your information. But this is kind of how I do it. I create a page for each sort of module or each lesson. And then within that, I dive deeper, I add notes, and then I've got this top level insights. Sometimes I'll just add call notes here as well. And I could even add that to the insights table if I wanted to and connect it to notes. But that's just kind of one way that I've been trying to get into the habit of whenever I'm listening to a podcast even or reading a book, I will create a new studies in here, and then I will add my notes directly in that studies. One thing I'm trying to get into the habit of doing as well is adding a summary. So if you're taking a lot of different courses and you're reading a lot of different books, you're going to forget a good chunk of what was in there. So if you get into the habit of summarizing things and kind of highlighting and bolding the parts that are most important, here's just some of the really messy notes that I took from going through this book, first, second, third. And these are kind of my highlighted notes that, again, going through that was helpful. And then I summarized it there for myself. And if I wanted to, I could actually include the summary property here. So I could show that. I haven't created summaries for everything, but here you go. It shows up here. Here's another one, Sphere of Influence, a really great course that I've been taking. So here's the summary of it. Here are some of the really impressive graphics that for me helped encapsulate some of the learning. Prelude. Some of these notes are really long. Some of them are really short. Sometimes I'm just copying and pasting things from the course, things that I want to remember. So you can see it really depends kind of how deep you want to go. Some of these courses I didn't take a lot of notes. Some of them there's quite a few notes here because I find these visuals are just so helpful for me to kind of go back to anytime. So this way I'm going back to my own notes instead of going back to the original course material. So I'm going to my summarized notes, and hopefully that's helpful and that makes sense. How's the Second Brain course? Would you recommend it? I love the Second Brain course, Building a Second Brain by Tiago Forte, for those of you who are curious. I have found the PARA method of organizing. Here, PARA method, operations manual. It's sort of, how to manage your digital information. So my Notion setup actually reflects the PARA method: projects, areas, resources, archives. And then I've layered on top of that my calendar, my task management, my planning, and all of that, because Notion can do all of that. So I've just taken the concepts that I've learned and taken them to the next level on Notion, because I think Notion's such a really great tool for actually mapping out your second brain, with the ease of being able to reference any note from almost anywhere, relational databases, connecting different information. It's been super, super useful. So I really enjoyed the course. I think it's helped me rethink the information that I'm consuming. One of the big things that I took away from it was this idea of kind of curating the knowledge that is coming in and almost pre-deciding in advance what is the information that I want to be taking in, and then any notes and information that I'm collecting, that I'm moving it toward certain problems that I want to solve in my life, and thinking really big picture about what are those problems that I want to solve. or again, just bigger questions that I want to think about. So yeah, it was, I thought it was really fun, really heady. It just helps me keep really organized. So I always love Tiago's work. I've gotten a lot out of his other articles and the Praxis membership and that sort of thing. So I'm a big fan personally. Definitely recommend. You can see here, this is kind of the summary of the course here. Click on original so you can see this amazing infographic that Maggie from, I forget Maggie's last name, but she did this for egghead.io, and you can see this incredible graphic here that she made and kind of summarized the concepts of building a second brain. So hopefully that's helpful. Close this. Yeah, so I just tried to make it a habit that anytime I'm studying something new, that I always just keep all of my notes in here. It's super easy to jump around. I can even see which days in my journal I was working on that course. I can see which weeks I was looking at that course, connected to certain notes here. So I really just love the power of these relational databases so that as I'm tracking what I'm studying week to week, at the end of the year, when I go through and look at my weekly tracker, I can really see what I've been consuming, what I've been paying attention to, what I've been influenced by at a glance. I just really love that ability to track that. Go back here to some of these student and educator templates. I'm really excited to dive into this thesis planning personally. I think that's one of the big challenges is how to manage really long-term, long-scale projects. So yeah, this ability to see, that's really cool. So yeah, I encourage you to jump in and add the student teacher templates to your account, right? I've already added this to my account, but when you open up that template by going to Notion's templates here, you'll see them all under the education area, and you can go and add those, use this template, add them to your account, play around with them, see if they're useful to you. They may not be useful until you've dug in and really started playing with the data and information and connecting it to stuff that makes sense for you. But it's really, really cool to see what they've put together. Any other questions that I can help answer or use cases that I could show for you? I know sometimes just seeing the way other people use it can inspire new possibilities. So I definitely encourage you to add these to your account, play around, see what use cases make sense for you. There's some great personal templates in here as well. A couple more questions popping in. How to structure Notion big picture. Okay, this is a great question, Oscar, because I do think I've talked about this before about how Notion is so open-ended that if you don't have a structure to give your information, it's going to feel really, really overwhelming. And this connects to the second brain conversation that we were just having is you'll see this is kind of what my workspace looks like. I have a top-level dashboard. I have an inbox for just very quick random notes that come in that maybe don't have a place yet. I have a personal journal. So every day I keep a journal here. I have a master tasks database and I pull that in to any works. Like for example, in my dashboard, I have a filtered view, budgeting things. And then these are shared spaces for us. Here's another example of just some shared areas where these are case studies, for example, of the work that we've done. That's a public database because I often will embed that into other areas, other documents. And then I embed my calendar here so I have a sense of what's happening. So areas are basically like internal areas of responsibility. Resources are sort of external, things I'm reading and learning, studies that I'm doing, swipe files, examples of things that I want to save for later, reference templates, that sort of thing. and then archive things that I'm not using anymore. So that's really the top level structure. Having a dashboard overview, everyone's dashboard is going to look totally different depending on what you want to surface, what information is most important to you. So for example, on my dashboard, I have a weekly planner at the top. I can see this in a couple different ways. I've got my quarterly goals, I've got templates, monthly vision. This is going to look very different from person to person. So the beauty of having these dashboards is you can embed databases that live elsewhere inside of a page. So that is so much fun. It allows you to really craft a dashboard that makes sense for you. Again, inbox is just notes and thoughts that come in that just need processing and need to send them elsewhere. But yeah, this is what works for me. We've got these projects here. I can save this any way that you want. I've sometimes put these as database entries, but because a lot of these contain databases inside of them, I didn't want to have too many databases inside of databases inside of databases. But that can change too. At any time, I can turn these into a database table. So you don't have to decide right away. You can totally play with your space and change your mind, moving something from a page to a database entry by dragging it in. I could, it just has everything that's that. When does they find? Lots of ways to use that. Learning as well. So anything, this is pulling from my studies, right? So I can say, oh, I did the Investing 101 course today. And that's one way that you can journal, but also connect it to the data that you're collecting, which I just really love. I've got a meal planner here, so I can actually add, items from my recipes. Let's just add the tacos. That's awesome. And then you can see here, this is the calendar that I showed you earlier. So we had a Notion Hangout today. We had another Notion office hours. Not sure if I have this particular event added in there yet. Oh, here we go. Notion office hours school edition. So I can add that there because that happened today. And then any tasks. So this is pulling from my master task database. So I can either add tasks here or pull them from that database. And then I know that this is September 16th to the 22nd week. And that way I can jump into weeks. I can jump into, when I'm in a weekly view, I can jump into a daily view very, very quickly and just get a really good sense of what's happening. I always add an image every day, and that's the image that pops up as the cover image. And I've got these 12 questions. And so I pull one of those questions in and paste it here. And that becomes the one big question to keep top of mind today, a bit of an evening and morning checklist. And yeah, that's what I do for my journaling every day. And I just love that as a habit and just being really reflective on what that looks like. You can view it in so many different ways. And, I can surface the information and, show me what I was reading, show me what I was learning. I can include some of those things, any tasks that I had to do. You can kind of choose how much information you want to surface. And then, you can see how long I've been doing this since, I think since February. And even tracking exercise, things like that. I didn't always track all this stuff. So you can see some of this is kind of empty as I scroll down earlier and earlier. So really this only started mid-February, but it's been cool to have done this over such a long period of time and to really, what are the most common words that I'm using? What's the exercise? There's a lot of different ways I could filter and sort this and kind of hide, maybe hide certain categories. Hide that. Not the only person that has some of these questions. Is there a way to subscribe to all the upcoming presentations? Yes. So if you follow Notion on Crowdcast, at the top of the screen, you should see Notion. As long as you click on the Notion page and click Follow Notion, you will be notified anytime there is a new Notion event. I believe you should receive an email. So definitely follow Notion, stay tuned. You can always totally invite you to come up. The subreddit is really great too. Yeah, lots of people who totally invite you to come up. The additional kind of how-to videos. I do post a weekly video on my YouTube channel as well. I can post the link to that, but I try to, record really specific use cases and go a little bit deeper if that is helpful. So thanks so much, everyone, for showing up. We really appreciate you. And again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to submit them and tag me on Twitter as well. And I'm happy to answer those in a future office hours. Thanks again. I hope everyone has a really great weekend and enjoy diving into those templates. Thanks, everyone.